Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech. And it's time to talk about the future of work as we know it. As businesses around the world make the definitive shift from remote to hybrid work, I think one thing is clear. It's that we're not the same people that went home from work back in the 1900s. Listen to me, in 2020. I think the world has undergone a revolution. It certainly has over that time scale, but just over the last 2 years, we've seen a revolution in the office. And based on findings from Microsoft's 2022 Work Trend Index, there's no going back to the way that it once was. Understanding and keeping pace with the new expectations, the new demands, I think is a challenge facing everyone today, and one that's going to be key to making this hybrid world of work. Colin Erasmus is Director of Modern Workplace and Security at Microsoft South Africa. And Colin, great to have you on the show. It's something we talk about quite frequently on the show now. What is that new world of work look like? So let's start with the baseline. How has the world of work changed?
Michael, it's good to speak to you as always. And yes, it feels like it was the 1900s almost. It feels like it's been a while since we've been at work. And I think one of the major changes that we've seen is that we now talk about hybrid. I think prior to this, we spoke very much about remote work, so people being at home and working. We now really have moved quite firmly into this hybrid space. And we've seen companies adopt it in a different way. So some people are still completely remote, so you can work from home. Some organizations we've seen have adopted a 2-week or a 3-week, so in the office and at home and where you want to be. But I think what we know is that hybrid is here to stay. What we've also seen, and you spoke about the trend index survey that was done, is one of the things that we've seen is what people are asking for. And we call this the hybrid paradox, really. And this is where people are saying to us, hey, we love that flexibility that we had when we were at home. So being able to get up, had breakfast with our kids, maybe take the lunch, and get more connected with the family life again. And a lot of other people are saying, but while we want that flexibility, we also want that collaboration. We want to be able to speak to our peers. We want to have those coffee conversations. And I think that is really what we're dealing with, is that while things have changed, what has become really important is collaboration. How we connect with people and how we connect with people in this world where we're so disparate and apart. And I think that really is the big change in what we're trying to adopt for.
Yeah, collaboration is certainly something that I miss about not going into the office. Collaboration, and maybe also just a bit of time away from the family. As much as it's been great having my two daughters much closer, and I've seen so much more of them over the last 2 years, you do get that sense that you're living at work more than working from home. And there does need to be something of a line drawn in the sand there. But considering that the shape of work is constantly shifting and we're all feeling out this new normal, and the fact that office employees seem to want a sort of hybrid remote office work schedule that collaboration engages, how and where we work has obviously changed since the pandemic. And all of this has to be thrown into a melting pot for a business or an organization or a leader to juggle. What does the future of work look like from that perspective? If that's what's changed and we want collaboration, but we also want flexibility, how do you deliver something in such a kind of disparate manner?
So look, I think, and we'll get to technology in a second, and I think technology is going to play a big role, but I think the bigger role that is to play is to embrace extreme flexibility. I think that's the one. And I think we need to put people at the center of this. And so much so that I think when Microsoft went through this ourselves, we came up with what we believed was a new model to try and embrace some of this. And the new model had 3 pieces to it, really, which was people at the center, and that has to be understood. Places, and the places we talk about in this instance is not necessarily what we think, but it's about reimagining the physical places that we're working, including at the office. So how do we make sure that people are inclusive, whether they're in the office, out of the office, or even in a coffee shop when they're participating in meetings or collaborating. And the last one really for us is processes. Now, I think with all of that, Michael, we got to consider the culture. We got to consider how we change and how we challenge people and their growth mindset and the mindset they use to approach collaboration and work. And I think that's one of the major things that we need to do, is that embracing of extreme flexibility, having a look at the culture and how do we change our cultures to adopt to this. And we've got to remember that we're going to have to reskill a lot of individuals, right, to
Yeah.
work in this way to get the most out of them and to make sure that they are placed at the center and that employee experience becomes critical.
I think digital literacy for me becomes key, because you can have, you can have that approach of ensuring you've got the right technology that allows collaboration. And I think whiteboards has been introduced. It's a great additional feature of something like Teams. But if you're not, comfortable or familiar with the technology, very often your colleagues won't use it, and you lose the impact or the power of that technology. That said, though, how much of the shift is actually about technology? Because culture, yes, is important, but you've also got to have the right tools inside the organization to be able to embrace this new world.
Correct. So when we spoke about that people, places, and processes, I think the technology portion becomes quite interesting. So when we look at places, and let me give you a brief example. If we go back 2 or 3 years, if we did a online meeting when I was in the office, it was usually the people that were remote that felt a little bit disconnected from the meeting, right? I think in the last 2 years, we've seen the opposite happen. So people that potentially went back to work were potentially a little bit more disconnected because most of us were remote. And I think where technology comes in for many instances is, how do we actually make sure that everybody is included in these sorts of collaborations or meetings that we want to attend? And not just meetings. If we think about a person joining a company, now I have got examples where I've got colleagues that I've never met that joined Microsoft as an example during the 2 years of lockdown. How do I make sure that those colleagues, their well-being has been met, but from a mental point of view as well? So there's a lot of other technology behind this that allows us to do things like onboard people, allows us to give people the resources that they need at their fingertips. So technology's got a lot to do with this to make sure that they're not burning out. So technology, like from a cultural point of view, how do I make sure that people aren't sitting up until 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning doing email? There's technology that can help with that. So I think, Michael, as we've said, I think culture plays a very important role, but I think there's technology that supports a lot of that.
That's really interesting, because I'm one of those individuals who, I found my productivity has gone through the roof. But balance, work-life balance, what's that? I really am struggling with the work-life balance issue now that I do the bulk of my work from home. So can you give me a few examples of those technology tools that you've got to help from a culture and a kind of a burnout and employee wellness perspective?
Sure. Look, one of the examples I will give is a product set that we've recently released called Viva. Now, one of the product sets inside of there is something called Viva Insights, as an example, which goes at a personal level. So at a personal level, it allows me to take a look at how I'm collaborating. It allows me to take a look at who I'm collaborating most with and when I'm collaborating. It also does things like suggest downtime for me. So it actually suggests that I potentially book time in my diary to just think. Right. And to your point, when we used to drive to work, there was potentially our thinking time and our downtime. We don't have that anymore if we're working remotely. I get up in the morning, my laptop is open, I'm potentially having breakfast over my laptop. So we actually have technology that are encouraging people to do that. And that same piece of technology, as an example, allows my manager to have a look and allows my PR to have my HR to have a look across the organization culturally to see what people are doing, and are there things I need to put in place to potentially stop or encourage different behaviors. So that's one technology. Viva Learning is another technology. How do we make sure that we are enabling people? So training them on what they need to do on a daily basis, making sure that their well-being is correct. So Michael, there's a myriad of technologies. You will see from Teams all the changes that we've made to allow a lot of this to share easier. So lots of technology in place, and it is about collaboration at the end of the day, collaborating in a slightly different world than what we knew before.
So what does collaboration look like then in a hyper-connected business? From a Microsoft perspective, what do you see collaboration looking like?
So I think this is where the changes come for me. I think collaboration for me now needs to be in line into what you do on a daily basis. So if you think about the way we used to collaborate in the past, potentially we'd have email. Email was open. I maybe had a link in the email. I'd have to go there. I'd have to get hold of my team separately. I think what we've tried to do, and the way we think about collaboration now, is how do we inline that into everything that we do? So make sure that even if you take a look at something like Teams, actually start what would have been an email thread inside a Teams conversation, that I can now attach all the documents. I can attach all the people that may have expertise in that, in what I'm doing, into that conversation as I'm doing my work. And I think that's the big thing. So what we really are trying to do is, how do we connect people to the data that they need, to the processes that they need in an inline fashion. And that really is the change that we're trying to see, or that we want to see within this hyper-connected world.
Yeah, and I've already come across many who use the Teams transcribe function for meetings as a great way to take over the annotation, minuting of meetings, and to catalog and to organize that data as well. So we're already seeing how our ideas of work are shifting with this technology. And I've always held that I think many of our ideas, if you look at the classroom and education, they were designed during an industrial revolution where they were fit for that era. They were fit for that purpose. And it almost felt like we hadn't really moved on since then. This seems to me to be that big shift that's helping us to reimagine the workplace. Would you go along with that?
Our own CEO actually said that we'd seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. And I truly think that that's where a lot of businesses have gone. There was a need as people went remote. So there was a real need to want to get that digital transformation done and to get people connected. I think as the 2 years have gone on, I think a lot of organizations have realized that this is the future. It's the way of working. It's the new normal, whatever we potentially want to call this. And a lot of organizations are now adopting this hybrid methodology and trying to figure out how they streamline this. We actually believe with people being in the center, there are 3 major inputs into the people element. Work site as an example. So everyone's going to have a work site, whether that's at the office, whether it's in a coffee shop, or whether it's at home. That's going to change. Location is the second one. So what we've also seen now is that people have got the ability to work from different locations. Whether that's in Johannesburg or in Cape Town, we've seen this semi-migration, we've seen people move. So that's the other input into a person. And the third one is hours. Now that also changes now. We've seen that people can be more flexible. And I think what has been realized is that this is now the new normal. We need to embrace this extreme flexibility, and we need to figure out how we function in this world and how we actually get the most out of our people and allow collaboration in this new world. So 100% agree with you. I think we've seen a big change in that. Digital transformation is definitely accelerating.
Yeah, the bottom line is that a business is going to have to plan. You're going to have the plan that encompasses those 3 Ps. The people, the places, and then the processes, and try and codify. Who's going to work remotely, who might have to come in, and once you've got that, you've got the rails. Then you can really you can form a plan that empowers people, that delivers that extreme flexibility, and you start to see all of this come together beautifully. Colin, great pleasure chatting to you. We're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure we'll catch up soon as we all continue to grapple with what this new world of work means. Take care.
Thank you.
That was Colin Erasmus, Director of Modern Workplace and Security at Microsoft South Africa. Just make sure that you're not one of those firms where the answer to many of the questions has been to slip back into old habits. Otherwise, I fear you will be left behind. You've been watching Business Talk here on Business Tech.